Hello, and thank you for watching this presentation entitled Caught Between Crisis, Youth Socialization and Urban Authoritarianism at Harare's Urban Markets. My name is Marjoke Oosterom. I'm a research fellow at the Institute of Development Studies, University of Sussex, and I'll be presenting this together with my colleague, Dr. Gukurume, who's a lecturer at Sol Plaatje University. And we will be speaking to the research that we've done over the past 3 years with urban young people working at informal markets in Harare. And we're approaching how they learn about authoritarianism, that is part of the political crisis in Zimbabwe, in a context of economic crisis through the context of political socialization, which refers to the process through which people learn and transmit political ideas and practices. And there's not much research outside of Europe and North America, only on young people who have been socialized into violence. And we wanted to look at how young people who are not mobilized into violence, but live in this context of political and economic crisis. Now, most of the research has prioritized looking at families, schools, and education. But we want to emphasize the places where people are actually spending a lot of time, which is on the streets, in the markets, where they work in the informal economy. And that young people, when they're living in violent contexts, they also learn a lot from what we call socialization experiences, through witnessing and seeing what happens around them, everyday exposure to authoritarianism in Zimbabwe. Recent waves of scholarship have prioritized youth agency, which we're also looking at in our study. Young people do not just receive political ideas, they actually actively negotiate their own socialization. So the research questions we're addressing is, how does political socialization of urban youth occur through working at urban markets, and how does it shape their political ideas and behaviors? And so we're looking at which socialization mechanisms are within the markets, how do they influence political ideas and practices, and which are in the end adopted by young people working there. And jumping forward, our key arguments will be that markets indeed function as sites of socialization, and that socialization experiences, everyday experiences, are key to learning how authoritarian politics work, and that as a result, many young people become quiet performers of the ruling party of ZANU-PF. And I'm now handing over to my colleague who's going to speak to the study.
Thank you very much, Marjoke. Maybe I'll start with the context, the Zimbabwean context. I think the country has been experiencing a protracted economic and political crisis, and marked by factionalism within the main ruling party, that is ZANU-PF. So in November 2017, the former president, Robert Mugabe, was removed through a military coup and replaced by Emmerson Mnangagwa. And since the late 90s, there's been an economic crisis marked by hyperinflation, currency shortage, and also a growing informalization and part of the informal economy. And this economic crisis was exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdown, which worsened the hardship, especially for the urban population. So in terms of our design, the main study focused on 3 markets, 2 in the capital city, Harare, and 1 in the second largest city in Bulawayo. But for this presentation, we focus on the main market in Harare, that is the Mpezanamo market. It's an old market that is heavily politicized, and the market committee at this space also functions as a ZANU-PF cell. So in terms of data collection, we started our fieldwork in July 2019, before the lockdown. We conducted interviews, semi-structured interviews, life history interviews, observations, and repeated these interviews for 3 years. And during the lockdown, we conducted phone call updates to understand the vendors' survival, economic activities, and also issues of security. So the market politics at the Mpezanamo market, which is the main market in Harare, the committee, like highlighted earlier, actually functions as the branch of the ZANU-PF party, and the members of the committee are central in organizing ruling party patronage and political mobilization for party activities and national events. And there's been a protracted history of cohesion and political violence at the market and in Mbare at large. So in the past, the committee has been backed by a violent militia gang that is associated with the ruling party ZANU-PF called Chipangano. But during the 2020 lockdown, the market was closed because it was seen as a potential hotspot for the spread of the COVID-19. And this closure of the market disempowered the committee in very complex ways. And we discuss these politics in our upcoming paper in African Affairs. So for us, we frame the market as a space and site for political socialization. And this happens through three main processes. The first being informal rules for political conduct, and which are enforced in many ways, such as closing the stores and the market during national holidays like the Independence Day, the Heroes Day, and other activities that are in support of the regime, such as the anti-sanctions marches that were done in solidarity with the government against sanctions that were imposed by the US and the EU. And the mobilization of vendors to attend such events normally comes with the keeping of a register for attendance, and there are consequences for vendors who do not attend such meetings. And over the years, there've also been the ban of wearing and also selling colors that are associated with the opposition. At some point, the color red, which was associated with the MDC, would actually get someone fired from their market or suspended from the market. So there is very specific disciplinary action which is enforced by the committee. There's also been the use of violence and threats of violence, and also eviction from the market. And most of these memories of violence are normally invoked and in everyday talk and everyday interactions within the market. So these and the symbols associated with the ruling party have been part of the discourse and everyday reminders of solidarity to the ruling party. So during national events, the market is literally closed and all vendors are forced to attend party activities. Let me hand over back to my colleague, Mayoke, to finish the presentation.
Thanks very much. So I'll go into the socialization component of the study. And we have to rewind a little bit for that, because of course, young people already come with some understanding of authoritarian politics before they start working at the market, which is usually in their late teens or early 20s and mid-20s. And from the life history interviews, it was very clear that the family is very important for making young people aware how authoritarian politics work. And many young people are discouraged from active engagement for the ruling party or the opposition. But what they will, what the parents or their adult relatives will tell them is like, you have to comply and participate at these events with a minimum effort to make sure that you're safe. And the family members will also model this behavior by attending some of those meetings where you just have to show your face to make sure you're seen compliant with the ruling party. Young people also have prior experience with political violence, mainly during the periods of election, but also other forms of authoritarian politics, like when party actors intervene for accessing resources. And this quote of a young man said that since 2007, when he was growing up, he saw a lot of things. He saw that people's businesses could prosper because of politics, but they could also fall down very quickly. And because of this, he tries to distance himself from any politics. Now, taking this to the market then, it fits with what they have learned and experienced before before they started at the market. So it's this disciplining that the committee does that they will see and witness and happen to other people. And it's through the discussions with some of their peers that they become aware, especially how ruling party patronage works, that you can only keep your stall, you can only stay selling there if you comply with these rules for political conduct. And it's through this witnessing, and they learn which kind of words and language to use and not to use. And so it really fits with what they were already aware of about ZANU-PF and its coercion, that they now also see amplified at the market, and the market becomes a space for further political learning. What then happens is that for those who do not genuinely support ZANU-PF, they have to perform ZANU-PF at the market. And so socialization in this context leads not to them supporting ZANU-PF and having loyalty, but they're socialized into doing the performance really well, which means not speaking out against the government or against the committee, making sure you carry some of the party regalia to display a ZANU-PF loyalty. And so there is quite a high degree of compliance at the market. But it's also clear that people want to try with the minimum effort of the compliance. So it's show your face, but maybe not for too long. Go to the, or some of the women would try to avoid going to some of these compulsory meetings at Heroes Day. When you ask them outside of the market, and this was especially possible through seeing the same participants multiple times over 3 years, is that then they started to open up and they dare to share a very critical attitudes about ZANU-PF, how the market was run with these coercive mechanisms, because they have to live every day with this economic crisis. So many see it's not fair that they then have to, that politics then interferes with their manner of survival in the urban informal economy. And so while many still respect the liberation and the actual liberation heroes, they feel these heroes are actually betrayed by the current political elites. So to conclude, we argue that markets can indeed function as sites of socialization by building on the prior socialization experiences. And many young people will know how authoritarian politics work before starting at these markets. It's especially the feature of ruling party patronage that is coerced, that they learn while working at the market. And they also learn through their peers and socialization experiences how to navigate this. They're learning on the job. The market politics reinforce their notion of how politics work in Zimbabwe. And for the majority of the young people who are not loyal to ZANU-PF, they're socialized into performing. And with that, we'd like to end, and we look forward to the discussions on the actual days of the conference. Thanks very much.
Thank you.